I thought that slavery was an issue of the 18th and 19th century, which was over and done with. After all, didn't Britain outlaw the slave trade in 1807, and the British Navy cleared the seas of slave traders, and the captives were set free already back in the 19th century. I mean, how could slavery still be an issue today? But I ran face up with the reality of slavery in Sudan. As our mission started to work in Sudan, we found that Muslim slave raiders were still coming into villages in Equatoria and Bahr el-Ghazal and rounding up black people, men, women, children, as slaves and taking them off, tethered together with yokes around their necks, off to the north, where they were being sold into slavery, sometimes to work in Khartoum, the capital, sometimes to be sent to other Muslim countries as far afield as United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Libya. In one case, a young Nuba girl from Sudan, from the Nuba Mountains, was enslaved in Khartoum, and later her owner, who was a diplomat, took her to London when he was appointed to the Sudan embassy in London. And the man had the audacity to take his slave with him to London. Well, she escaped. She knew enough to know that slavery is not legal in England. She sought political asylum. She received it. She wrote a book, Slave, My True Story, Mended Nazir. Now, that's a very recent story. That shows how current and real it is right now. So there still is slavery continuing to this day. But another part of the slave trade, which most people are not really aware of, which is even bigger, is the sexual slave trade. There is a massive amount of human trafficking. A lot of it from Eastern Europe. A lot of young girls from Eastern Europe are offered prospects in the West, even jobs in America, to be models, movie stars, all sorts of things that they're offered. And when they get here, they suddenly find their passports taken away, they are drugged, they are shipped off into some brothels, and they're used as sex slaves, and these people are effective prisoners. This is happening all over the world. We have this problem in South Africa right now with the World Cup Soccer 2010 coming to South Africa, and we've even had members of Parliament and the Commissioner of Police calling for the legalization of prostitution to accommodate the demand for prostitution during the World Cup Soccer event. I mean, Commissioner of Police, he, by the way, has since been removed. He was the head of Interpol at the time, and he's ended up in court on charge of racketeering, corruption, and he's got links to some of the worst racketeers, criminals, including human traffickers. So one doesn't have to look far as to where that idea came from to legalize prostitution. But we've had members of Parliament suggesting legalization of prostitution. So our mission has done further research into this and found out that there are millions of people today trafficked into the sexual slave trade. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry. There's a huge amount involved. It's connected with drugs and every other kind of vice and prostitution. And there's a lot of young people involved in this. It's not only young girls, there's also young boys in many cases. And this is an area that we've got to fight. Just as William Wilberforce and other evangelical Christians fought against the slave trade of the 18th and 19th century, we need to mobilize a new awareness of the reality of slavery today and to fight it. And there's different ways we can do it. For example, one thing we've done in our mission in South Africa is we've gone outside these escort agencies, which are nothing other than brothels in South Africa, with groups of people from local church, and we've sung hymns and started to preach and right outside the brothels. And you know, a strange thing, while we were out there preaching and praying, nobody went into the brothels. And they claim that what they're doing is perfectly above board, but for some reason, when you've got a bit of light shining there, the cockroaches and the rats just run for the corners, and they don't want to come where the light's shining. Next thing, we had pimps coming out and attacking us. I've been picked up and thrown by a man twice my size, right over the cars into the streets with traffic screaming around me, literally in West Street in Durban, which is the busiest street in a very busy city, for upsetting his customers and somehow undermining their business. So they said. One occasion I had some pimp coming while we were preaching the gospel outside the brothel, and we know that their girls inside could hear and whatever customers they had. They came and took a bucket of beer and wine and filth and urine and dumped it over me from head to toe. And 2 a.m, came back to my wife stinking like who knows what. I've just been preaching outside brothels. And can you imagine? So definitely street preaching can get you into a lot of trouble on occasion. And we've had one of our people had a broken nose from pimp, and one of our girls had a camera and she was taking pictures. That definitely discourages customers coming in. And this pimp came striding towards her. And I put myself between her and the thug and took the camera out of her hands, and he just grabbed me, smashed the camera in his hand on the ground and threw me so far. I mean, I couldn't believe that I was so light. So we've had occasions where they've got violent, but it's obviously that we're touching a raw nerve. It's spiritual warfare. We've had cases of all sorts of things being thrown at our protesters and prayer warriors and people sing hymns outside brothels. But we managed to see multiple brothels closed down. As we drew attention of the community to what was going on, other churches mobilized and they start to have a presence there. And little old grannies coming along with their German Shepherd dog, standing outside and saying to these girls on the street, "Oh, honey, this isn't a safe place for you to be. I'll just stand here with you until you can get a lift and go home safely." And of course, nobody's going to pick up any customers while some granny's standing there with a killer dog. And in this way, they chased them out of their community by just a community presence. And so we found that when churches get together and they start to sing hymns, proclaim the gospel, take ground, greater is him who's in us than him who's in the world. Submit to God, resist the devil, he will flee from us. And so this is spiritual warfare, and it's all about taking ground. So by taking the ground physically and spiritually, we found the devil flees. And I've seen at least 7 brothels closed down, which we have targeted over the years.